The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Henderson Bridge Virtual Town Hall meeting. My name is Kathleen Sisson, and I oversee professional development and training at RIDOT. My role today is assisting behind the scenes with our first virtual town hall meeting. RIDOT is continuing public involvement for our roadworks projects during the COVID-19 pandemic. As part of this effort, the Henderson Bridge project is our first virtual town hall meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know the format of today's event. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the question pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Please note that all attendees will be muted during the presentation. We will launch 2 different polls during the presentation to obtain your feedback. This webinar will be recorded and shared on RIDOT's website within 1 week. We will also have a transcript of the webinar and documentation of the questions with answers. I'm pleased to introduce today's moderator, David Walsh from RIDOT's Office of Project Management.
Thank you, Kathleen. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this, our first virtual town hall. We appreciate you taking time during these difficult days to receive the latest news on this important project. Tonight is an informational session to share the work that has gone on over the last 15 months. We will show how you can stay engaged by receiving project updates and how you can help influence future projects in your community. The Henderson Bridge is a crucial project for RIDOT and an important investment to the cities, residents, and businesses in this vital area of Rhode Island. The opportunity to develop a new gateway to the east side of Providence and to revamp the East Providence waterfront along the Seekonk River makes the Henderson Bridge project one of our most exciting roadworks projects. Now let's begin. Looking at the agenda, we will begin with a project review. We'll talk about current conditions of the Henderson Bridge area and proposed improvements. We're going to get into the construction phasing plan. We're going to also share phase 2, potential improvements for the Henderson Bridge area after this phase 1 is completed. Then we're going to get into the Washington Bridge preview. This is an upcoming project that is very important also to the area and has major connections with the Henderson Bridge project. We'll go over the conceptual improvements and the timeline of Washington Bridge. And then we'll finish with questions and answers. As Kathleen mentioned, you're going to be able to click your question box and put in comments or questions from now to the end of the presentation. Joining me today will be Anthony Pompey, the RIDOT project manager for the Henderson Bridge, and Jamie Pisano, VHB design consultant. These 2 gentlemen have been leading the project for the past 15 months. Partnerships in all RIDOT projects are an important ingredient towards success. The Henderson Bridge initiative has seen extraordinary coordination with many municipal partners. This began with our federal delegation in Washington and continued with Providence Mayor Elorza and East Providence Mayor De Silva, local council members, Rhode Island senators, reps, city planning departments, and our regional federal highway team. Starting in February 2019 and continuing today, RIDOT is working with and appreciates the cooperation from our municipal and federal partners. They are among the many entities working very hard to ensure the Henderson Bridge project is successful. Mayor De Silva has shared a brief statement for tonight's town hall attendees. We are excited about the greater access to pedestrians and bicycle traffic to our waterfront and bridging the east side of Providence to our growing and renewed waterfront. Before we get into the presentation, we're going to have our first poll. Our first polling question is, how do you use the Henderson Bridge? Please select one from commute to work, commute to school, bike the bridge, shop the east side, or avoid Route I-195. So please select one and hit submit. If you're having trouble submitting, you can always diminish your screen and that might help you. These polling questions give us insight to both how a project is going to affect people who use the area, and also what we can do to help during construction to try to mitigate some impact. So we'll give everyone a few more minutes, a few more seconds to make your selection. And here are the poll results. In the lead by far, avoid Route I-195. Tied for second, well, actually the three very close. Shop the east side, which is good to see for the doctors, restaurants, and businesses on the east side. Bike the bridge, commute to work, and then commute to school at 4%. Thank you for sharing in the poll. Now I'd like to introduce Project Manager Anthony Pompey to review the project timeline.
Great, thank you, Dave, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'd like to start off with a short summary of events over the past year plus that has led us to the final version of the project that we'll be reviewing today. In February of last year, RIDOT was informed that Senator Reid had authored a bill that provided additional federal funding for bridge projects based on the percentage of deficient bridges per state. As a result, RIDOT received an additional $54.5 million in federal funding, which was immediately allocated towards the replacement of the Henderson Bridge. Initial design and permitting efforts immediately followed, along with our first coordination meetings with our municipal partners. Last spring, we held 2 public meetings to review our proposed concepts and receive feedback. Our first meeting was held in East Providence in April 2019, and our second the following month across the river in Providence. Since that time, we've held regular meetings with members of both municipalities, as well as several stakeholder groups in the area. In coordination with our partners at the Federal Highway Administration, we held an independent engineering review of our proposed design in October 2019, where a team of independent industry experts reviewed our current designs and offered several recommendations which were carried through into our final design, leading us to the advertisement of the project for construction in March of this year. In addition to the first virtual town hall meeting, today we've also launched a project-specific webpage on RIDOT's website, which includes summary information about the project and a copy of today's presentation. We'll also be updated regularly during construction with information about upcoming phases and general project work. Based on our current procurement schedule, we're estimating construction to begin either late this summer or early fall. Now I'll ask Dave Walsh to come back and take you through some additional details on our coordination efforts to date. Dave.
Thanks, Anthony. This is a very important slide in our presentation, as Anthony just took us through the project timeline, which includes our public involvement for the Henderson Bridge. These engagements included numerous discussions with stakeholders and elected officials starting in the winter of 2019 and continuing into 2020. There have been regular updates and input from Providence and East Providence planning departments, as well as other city officials. Our public involvement sessions were highlighted by a pair of 2019 public meetings. The first was held on April 24th in East Providence and the second on May 20th in Providence. The handwritten notes on this slide represent just a few of the many comments and questions from residents, businesses, and officials which were received at these meetings, all of which were documented and reviewed by our project and design teams. As we go to the next slide, we look at our lessons learned from all of this engaging with the public and with our municipalities. Our takeaways or lessons learned were influenced by all of our public involvement over the past 15 months. Specific items that have been implemented in our design or are on our list of phase 2 opportunities are on this slide. They include a substantial protected bike path. Many residents were concerned for safety as they were excited about the idea of a new bike path on the bridge. We heard about bridge overlooks and decorative lighting, great ideas to add to the look and feel of the bridge. We moved from the double roundabout option we showed in East Providence after hearing from stakeholders and working with the city to a new single roundabout in East Providence, which you'll see during this presentation. The two things we heard the most from the public, from businesses, from residents, all stakeholders, were these last two bullet points. The first, accommodating rush hour traffic to the east side. There were many concerns that one lane of traffic heading west into Providence would not suffice based on the traffic conditions at rush hour that many residents, many residents with seeing every day in their lives currently. And lastly, but the most request, was for the Gano Street off-ramp to remain open. We heard about this from a lot of people in Providence. The whole area were very focused in asking us to reconsider and look at the Gano Street off-ramp remaining open. The next section of lesson learned, this slide, are more overall project related. These are guidelines and goals on the slides that we've taken to heart as we've moved through our design and getting ready for construction. These include improved access, safety, and traffic flow, traffic calming measures on both sides of the bridge in both cities, how to support multiple transportation demands, provide social and economic opportunities, and always to continue public involvement. Now let Anthony come back and get into the heart of the presentation on the Henderson Bridge project. Anthony?
Great, thanks again, Dave. So all of the efforts we've just reviewed have brought us to where we are today with the Henderson Bridge Phase 1 project and a total budget of $88.5 million. As part of this project, we'll be replacing the largest structurally deficient bridge maintained by the Rhode Island DOT. But rather than just replace the structure as is, we recognize that this was a perfect opportunity to right-size this infrastructure by dramatically reducing the overall footprint of the bridge and surrounding roadways, which also aided us in providing significant stormwater and drainage improvements for the entire area. As part of a reduction in the overall size of the bridge, we're not only replacing it with a bridge that is only half the width of the current bridge, we're also reducing the overall length by approximately a third. This allows us to lower the approach on the East Providence side and create a new abutment much closer to the river's edge. This new alignment allows for construction of an at-grade intersection of a new roundabout in East Providence at the intersection of Massasoit Avenue. This serves as a gateway to the new Henderson Bridge with direct access to the heart of Wayland Square in Providence, as well as all destinations within the city of East Providence. And with construction of the new 12-foot separated shared use path, we are expanding multimodal transportation options from East River Street in the city of Providence across the new bridge and tying into Waterfront Drive in East Providence. Now at this point, I'd like to introduce Jamie Pisano with VHB, our design engineer for the project. We'll now take you through some graphics and some more in-depth details about the project. Jamie.
Great, thanks Anthony, and good evening everybody. First, I'd like to start off with the project limits. As Anthony had mentioned, this is the reconstruction of the Henderson Bridge project, and as a part of that, we'll expand our project limits to the approaches to the Henderson Bridge. So I'd like to draw your attention to the upper left-hand portion of this slide, and it highlights the graphic that you've seen, such that yellow would be the proposed roadway improvements, orange is going to be the proposed bicycle and pedestrian improvements, the blue shaded area would be the structural bridge removed over the water, in the green, it'd be the roadway and bridge structure removed over land. Starting in the Providence side on the left-hand side of the screen, Henderson Bridge is connected to South Angel Street and Waterman Street. South Angel Street and Waterman Street are local roadways with posted 25-mile-per-hour design speed limits. From the bridge to South Angel Street, it's a two-lane approach, as well as from Waterman Street, it's a sweeping left onto the approach to the bridge, which expands to 2 lanes as it moves towards the bridge. During our public involvement, we heard it feels like a highway. Speeds are excessive, and there's a safety issue on Waterman Street with the connection to the Henderson Bridge. That conflict is with as Waterman Street, as I mentioned, is a sweep onto the approach, bicyclists are allowed to take that left as well. However, when vehicles are continuing through on Waterman Street towards Richmond Square, there's a potential conflict between the bicyclist turning left and the vehicle continuing straight. These are some of the issues that we will address in our proposed improvements as we get further into this discussion tonight. I'd like to draw your attention to the Henderson Bridge. As this was originally constructed, it was a 6-lane highway to nowhere. It extends from Providence to East Providence, flies over East River Street, the Seekonk River, former railroad, Waterfront Drive, and Massasoit Avenue. The clearance at the channel span of the Seekonk River is approximately 42 feet. It mimics the Washington Bridge clearance, and it is actually an asset to the municipalities in potential development of the waterfront north of the Henderson Bridge. RIDOT ended up reducing the bridge width by placing barrier along the bridge and providing 2 lanes in each direction, and also including a dedicated bike lane. The bridge is posted for 35 miles per hour, and again, during public involvement, we heard that the speeds were excessive, and people would love to see if we could lower the bridge. As we get into East Providence, the Henderson Bridge turns into the Henderson Expressway and continues out towards North Broadway. But it flies over Waterfront Drive, a 2-lane roadway running from Warren Avenue to Dexter Road, and is posted for 35 miles per hour and has no access to the Henderson Bridge. Massasoit Avenue is a 2-lane roadway posted for 30 miles per hour south of the bridge and 25 miles per hour north of the bridge. The connection between Massasoit Avenue, the Henderson Expressway, and the Henderson Bridge is through an interchange, a ramp system that takes up a lot of area within the city of East Providence. Again, things that we heard: vehicle speeds were excessive, limited access to the bridge and waterfront, and it appeared to be a wasted land / waterfront area. RIPTA runs services through this project area, and we've coordinated with them throughout the project to maintain that service throughout, and I'll get into further detail later on. On this graphic, I'd like to highlight, again with the colors, the yellow and the orange is the proposed roadway and bridge pedestrian improvements. The blue and the green is infrastructure, roadway, and bridge that will be removed. This reduction in impervious area will result in an improved water quality. Before I leave this slide, I'd like to get into some of the improvements on the Providence side. So our intent here from South Angel Street and Waterman Street is to maintain these connections, and we will be signing these approaches for 25 miles per hour. We do maintain the 2-lane approach from the Henderson Bridge to South Angel Street, but we will be reducing the 2 lanes from Waterman Street down to 1 lane. We will also be revising the approach from Waterman Street to be more of a 90-degree left turn, again, slowing speeds as you approach from Waterman Street towards the bridge. Another benefit that we intend to add is signage directing bicyclists to continue down Waterman Street to Richmond Square and turn left onto East River Street. And there we introduce the entrance to the shared use path off of East River Street. This, again, avoiding the potential conflict of cyclists trying to turn left at the entrance to the Henderson Bridge from Waterman Street. A subsequent benefit to the moving the approach or the entrance to the shared use path on East River Street is the Blackstone River Bikeway comes up from India Point and ends at Pittman Street, becomes an on-road facility. Pittman Street, you could follow Pittman Street into Richmond Square and onto East River Street and connect into the shared use path as a part of this project. Again, a benefit to the bike network throughout the Providence and East Providence area. So on the next slide, I'd like to continue with the proposed improvements for the Henderson Bridge. You'll note that the Henderson Bridge will be reduced in length and width. We provide 3 lanes, 2 lanes heading to Providence, 1 lane heading to East Providence, and incorporate a shared use path. We will post a bridge for 30 miles per hour. We will also maintain that channel clearance, as I had mentioned, because it is a nice asset for potential waterfront development north of the bridge. We will, however, lower the East Providence approach. Again, lowering the East Providence approach allows us to reduce the length of the bridge and create an at-grade roadway through East Providence. So in East Providence, by creating this at-grade roadway, our intention is to change the name of the Henderson Expressway and call it the Henderson Parkway. And again, the roadway would be posted for 30 miles per hour. To facilitate the connections between these roadways in East Providence and the Henderson Bridge, we'll introduce a roundabout, an at-grade intersection. I would like to clarify that a roundabout is not a rotary. A roundabout is much smaller than a rotary. It operates at much lower speeds, and traffic entering the roundabout is under a yield condition. So vehicles within the roundabout have the right of way. One of the issues that were brought up in our public meetings was that Waterfront Drive did not have access to the Henderson Bridge. Part of our proposed improvements would be to merge Waterfront Drive with Massasoit Avenue south of the proposed roundabout. We would post the roadway for 30 miles per hour. And a benefit of merging Waterfront Drive with Massasoit Avenue is we would connect the neighborhood east of what is Massasoit Avenue today with the waterfront. Massasoit Avenue to the north of the roundabout again would be maintained its speed limit of 25 miles per hour. And Waterfront Drive north of the roundabout, north of the bridge, will be tied in with a right in, right out. Again, RIPTA will maintain service throughout this project area. I also just want to highlight that we have an area where we'll be addressing stormwater management, and it'll be in the area where the bridge structure will be removed. And the next slide, I'd like to get into a little bit of the weeds of our design. Starting with the traffic demands, back in March of 2019, we performed traffic counts and reviewed historic data. We determined that approximately 21,000 vehicles use the bridge per day. We've developed a VISM simulation, a simple term is a traffic model, and we calibrated that traffic model by witnessing existing conditions and understanding the backups that happen during the day. We use that model to support our design. We've also worked with the municipal planning departments and accounted for future demands from projects anticipated, as well as accounting for the proposed improvements of the Washington Bridge project, as Gano Street will remain open and the potential for a new off-ramp to Waterfront Drive from I-195. We took these traffic projections and forecasted it out 20 years. On the next slide, just jumping into that traffic evaluation again to show you the reasoning behind the lane geometry that we used on the Henderson Bridge. We jump into peak hour, as Dave had mentioned. Peak hour is the most vehicles used in a certain hour. And as we found, the morning peak happens towards Providence, morning peak in the commuter hours between 7 and 9 a.m. Under existing conditions, in that peak hour, we have 1,245 cars per hour. In the 20-year forecast, we have 1,495 cars per hour. In reverse, the evening peak headed towards East Providence. Again, happening during the commuting hours of 4 to 6. Under the existing conditions, you had 1,085 cars per hour and a forecast of the 20-year forecast of 1,185 cars. We have guidance that we use in developing our design. The guidance shows that approximately a local roadway network can handle 1,200 cars per hour per lane. You'll see in the Providence direction, we are just over that threshold in the existing conditions with 1,245. And in the proposed condition, 1,495 exceeds that. Using that logic, we provided 2 lanes in the Providence direction. And when you look towards the East Providence, the existing in the 20-year forecast is under the 1,200. So we propose 1 lane in the East Providence direction. One of the things I'd like to highlight is, I tip my cap to the public that participated last year. Again, they recognize that 2 lanes were needed in the Providence direction. So again, we thank you for all your input. Now that we've jumped into the weeds, I sort of want to jump back out and give you the nice graphics that show an animation of our proposed improvements. So Kathleen, if you could go to the next slide. And if you could start the animation, we are going to start on the new waterfront drive in East Providence, heading north towards the roundabout. I apologize for the choppiness. As we're heading north, we just passed Waterman Ave coming into the new waterfront drive. You're looking at a mid-block crossing of the shared use path. We're coming up the new waterfront drive to the proposed roundabout. You will note the pavement markings show the yield condition that I mentioned. We are now starting to head along the new Henderson Parkway. Right-hand side of the screen, you see the waterfront drive with its right in, right out, again providing access to the potential developments north of the Henderson Bridge. As we fly over the Seekonk River heading towards Providence, you'll see 2 lanes heading towards Providence, 1 lane heading towards East Providence. A traffic calming measure that you'll see not so much in the animation, but in the proposed conditions is a speed feedback sign on the East Providence side as you get off the bridge. Speedback sign presenting the speed of the vehicle coming across, and also a sign showing that the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. One of the improvements that we proposed in the Providence side is a sidewalk that connects South Angel Street to Waterman Street. It runs along the dog park. Now we're turned around. We're heading towards East Providence. We're on the approach from Waterman Street, heading towards the bridge. The proposed sidewalk that I mentioned is on the left. The approach in front of you and the shared use path on the right. We continue up. You can see here's a pedestrian crossing from the proposed sidewalk to the shared use path. So again, the neighborhood on South Angel Street can be connected to not only the dog park, but the shared use path. As we continue up over the bridge, again, you see 2 lanes heading towards Providence, 1 lane towards East Providence, a 12-foot wide shared use path. We do incorporate decorative lighting, the highlights over the roadway, the lower ones over the shared use path. As we continue on the bridge has been lowered, as I mentioned, and we come into an at-grade roadway or our new Henderson Parkway. Again, I apologize for the glitch in the animation. As we continue into East Providence on the new Henderson Parkway, we do open up into 2 lanes as we approach the roundabout. Again, just a way to manage traffic in and around East Providence. We also provide a slip lane to the right, which will wheel traffic out of the roundabout and allow them to head south on the new waterfront drive. The left-hand side of the screen, there's also another slip lane. Comes from Massasoit Avenue, again, peeling some of the traffic from the roundabout and allowing them to head towards Providence and the Henderson Bridge. This animation will be included on the Henderson Bridge project page and will also be posted on YouTube for your future consideration. As we finish up the animation, I'm going to jump into some still images of this animation. Next slide, Kathleen. Here's a still image on the Providence approach from Waterman Street. Again, just highlighting we have the dog park off to the left-hand side, the proposed sidewalk connecting South Angel Street to Waterman Street, the one-lane approach from Waterman Street to the Henderson Bridge, and then a grass buffer between the roadway and the shared use path. On the next slide, just a view of the proposed bridge, again showing 2 lanes heading towards Providence, 1 lane towards East Providence, and a 12-foot wide shared use path. The lanes are 11 feet wide, again a reduction from the 12 feet that you see out there today. Our next slide shows a view of the new Henderson Parkway, and again, roadway with 11-foot travel lanes and a 12-foot wide shared use path. Gives you a little bit of view of that slip lane that I had mentioned in the approach to the roundabout. Our last still image will be of the new waterfront drive. Looking north, you see in the middle right, Waterman Ave coming into Waterfront Drive and continuing up towards the roundabout. You see the bid block crossing where the shared use path comes across the bridge, as Anthony had mentioned. The mid-block crossing, there'll be a special traffic signal introduced such that bicyclists and pedestrians will be able to push the button. Traffic will be stopped on Waterfront Drive, and bikes and pedestrians will be able to cross the road. Again, making that connection from the neighborhood that's east of Massasoit Avenue today and connecting them to the waterfront. On the next slide, I'd like to jump into the construction timeline that we anticipate for this project. I'd like everyone to note that the construction phasing that we've developed for the project is to build it safely and efficiently. We've minimized the number of traffic phases and shifts throughout the project. More importantly, the Henderson Bridge remains open during construction. We maintain vehicles and bicycles. We've also coordinated with RIPTR, as I mentioned before, and will ensure service is maintained throughout the construction of the project. The benefit of DOT today is that Anthony Pompey is the project manager for the Henderson Bridge and the Washington Bridge project. So the construction phasing will be coordinated throughout construction as we move these projects forward. Timeline that's presented in front of you is the construction is anticipated to begin late summer, early fall of 2020. We will begin shifting traffic within the project limits to the southerly bridge in the winter of 2020. As we go to merge Waterfront Drive with Massasoit and also create that at-grade roadway of the Henderson Parkway, we will need to close Waterfront Drive between Waterman Ave and Dexter Road. We will implement detours in East Providence to facilitate traffic. We will also shift traffic to the new bridge in the spring of 2022. We will need to clean up and demolish the existing bridge and some other elements, so the project will be complete by the summer of 2024. The next slide. This is just a graphic And again, the yellow is the proposed roadway, such that the area that traffic will be used during construction. The green is roadways that will be removed sort of at the beginning of the project. So you'll see that we maintain access using the southerly bridge in the ramp system in East Providence, north of the Henderson Bridge and Expressway, will be removed from service, and connections will be made to maintain the traffic throughout. As we get into that 2021 season, when Waterfront Drive is closed, the detours will again bring traffic into the yellow area and will maintain traffic. In that last phase of construction, we'll again move traffic over to the new bridge, and we will continue on. The nice part, as we go to the next slide, when construction is complete, it opens up opportunities. So the legend on the left is consistent with the other graphics that you've seen today, but we've now added purple for potential connections and future phase 2 elements. And Anthony Pompey will get into more detail on another slide, but I'd like to highlight the green hatched areas are areas that were underutilized today that could be potential development opportunities and enhance the area. The blue hatched area is the potential stormwater management area, as well as public access to the waterfront. And again, these opportunities will be developed more in phase 2, and Anthony Pompey will take you into the phase 2 on the next slide. Anthony?
Great, thank you, Jamie. So all of the designs and details that Jamie has just reviewed have been fully designed and will be constructed as part of the construction project that is scheduled to start later this year. I would now like to share with you some initial concepts we have about the future phase 2 contract that we're currently anticipating to advertise for construction after the completion of phase 1. Our main goals for this new phase 2 would be the extension of the shared use path further into the cities of Providence and East Providence, additional traffic calming and safety improvements on both sides of the river, creating a bridge overlook and other public spaces that could be used by all users, and enhanced landscape and urban environment elements. This image shows some of the potential improvements that could be included as part of phase 2. Using the same legend as the previous graphics, but adding the purple color to represent some possible added components. It is important to note that design efforts have not begun for this phase of work, so all aspects shown are entirely conceptual. On our next slide, we have a zoomed in version of the previous image, and it shows a new roundabout on the Providence side of the river, along with a new traffic movement that would allow vehicles entering the new roundabout to travel south to Waterman Avenue and Richard Fair. Also part of this work would be final connections into new shared use paths that Providence is currently looking into along both South Angel and Waterman, along with several additional traffic calming and safety improvement elements where appropriate. To our next slide. Here we have the other side of the river, which shows a northerly extension of the shared use path up Massasoit Avenue. This phase would also include the redevelopment of the remaining portion of the Henderson Expressway all the way to North Broadway, with the reconstruction of the intersection at that end as well. A current concept would propose another roundabout in place of the existing bridge that carries North Broadway over the on-ramp to the Henderson Expressway. Now on our next couple of slides, we show some conceptual renderings to serve as inspiration and the starting point for some potential phase 2 improvements. Here's a conceptual image of a potential bridge overlook area. We were able to incorporate some design details into our phase 1 project that would allow this or something similar to be constructed with very minimal impact to the new structure. On our next slide, we'll have a look at some potential landscaping and urban development opportunities as envisioned by one of our landscape architects. Improvements such as these could be incorporated throughout the corridor, providing a cohesive design for the area as a whole. We'd appreciate any feedback you may wish to offer on any of these concepts and would encourage you to reach out to municipality planning offices to discuss any specific ideas you may have before our design activities begin within the next year or two. When we do begin our design for this phase, we'll be working directly with each city to incorporate as many design features as possible. As we continue our state tip revisions this summer, we hope to be able to provide some defined budget and schedule information as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dave for our second poll question.
Thank you, Anthony. Okay, our second poll question is going to be focused on phase 2, which will be our initiative starting next year. What component of phase 2 is of most interest to you? Please select one from roundabout installation and roadway realignments, extension of bicycle and pedestrian access to the shared use paths, creation of green space and landscaping features, or the decorative bridge features, similar to the overlook and uplighting that we have heard from our public involvement meetings. Again, please take some time, select one. This will go into our review prior to design as we get past concept, working with the planning departments of both cities for our phase 2 project. I'll give everyone a few more seconds to choose an answer. Okay, let's see the results. What component of phase 2 is of most interest to you? Number 1, extension of bicycle and pedestrian access, followed closely by roundabout installation and roadway realignments, along with creation of green space and landscaping features. The decorative bridge features finish at 10%. Again, thank you for participating in both polls. So now we'd like to have Anthony come back on to give you a preview of the upcoming Washington Bridge project, which again is so related to the Henderson Bridge project in many ways.
Great, thanks, Dave. So due to the proximity of these two major projects, we thought this would be an ideal time for a first introduction to our upcoming Washington Bridge project. You can see several key components of our proposed project listed here that I'll get into some more detail on the next slide. But we've designed this new project with a primary focus on maintaining existing traffic levels to the maximum extent possible throughout the construction duration, while also providing dramatic improvements under final conditions to the delays currently experienced during rush hour periods. This is a design-build project that is also currently advertised, with construction anticipated to begin in 2021. This image is an overview of our proposed conceptual improvements. Project limits shown in yellow are from the Broadway underpass in East Providence to the South Main Street off-ramp in Providence. The orange segments shown represent some new proposed infrastructure components. Some key improvements include the elimination of an existing lane drop near the Broadway underpass on the right side of the screen. By restriping this corridor, we can maintain 4 travel lanes throughout the East Providence section of the interstate, removing a significant existing bottleneck. This newly extended 4th lane will then become an exit lane to a new exit to Waterfront Drive, providing direct access to the entire East Providence waterfront and the Henderson Bridge area. The remaining 3 lanes on the interstate will then join the 2 on-ramps from Taunton Avenue and the Veterans Parkway as they do today. However, by slightly widening the westerly 4 spans of the existing bridge between the Gano Street exit and Gano Street on the order of only about 10 feet, will allow us to convert the existing right lane from an exit lane to Gano Street into an option lane that also allows vehicles to continue on 195. By eliminating a major weaving movement, this modification will drastically reduce existing delays on the interstate during commuting hours, while also keeping the Gano Street exit open to traffic. As part of these modifications, we'll also need to relocate the existing Gano Street on-ramp to the other side of Gano Street. It will run directly alongside the existing exit ramp at the same elevation with access at the same signalized intersection at Gano Street, which will be modified to allow a left turn for southbound traffic. This change will provide the necessary sight distances for vehicles entering the highway and provide a safe merge into highway traffic. Now, this has only been a very brief introduction to this project, but if you'd like to hear more, we'd like to encourage you to be on the lookout for a second virtual public meeting in the coming weeks, which will explore this project specifically in some much greater detail. And with that, As our presentation nears its end, I'd like to cycle back to something I mentioned at the beginning. Our project webpage for the Henderson Bridge is now live. The site contains a lot of summary information about the project, as well as the animation shown earlier, and a full copy of tonight's presentation. Once construction begins, this page will be updated regularly to keep everyone informed of the ongoing progress and any upcoming traffic restrictions. Next slide, please. And at the bottom of that same page, you'll find this box. If you're interested in receiving further updates on this project, we encourage you to submit your email address here, and additional information will be automatically shared as it becomes available. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Dave to close out the presentation with a look at what's next and to get some of the questions that have been posted so far. Dave.
Thank you, Anthony. So the project page is something we've been doing for a couple of years. It's been a great addition to our outreach and public involvement with RIDOT. What we have on the screen now is a shortcut link to the Henderson Bridge project. All of you who have registered for this webinar will automatically be registered for the email updates that we will send out. But when someone goes on the project page, if they have not yet put their email in, they're able to do it on that screen that Anthony showed. So we will have this shortcut link also emailed to all of you who signed up and registered for this webinar. Also, the question and answer portion. We are going to move to answer a few questions at the end of this slide. And questions we don't get to, we are still going to answer. Every question that is put in tonight will be answered by our engineers, and within the next 7 to 10 days, posted on our project page for Henderson Bridge, as well as a transcript. So you will have both the presentation and the audio of tonight's presentation. Also, our municipal coordination and stakeholder meetings continue. We will continue to meet with the cities and the planning departments, council members, reps and senators, neighborhood and business associations on both sides of the river during construction, with updates on different movements of the construction in different phases, and also to prepare information and gain comments and questions for our Phase 2 project. The Washington Bridge Virtual Town Hall will plan for early summer of this year, most likely in June. And then our Phase 2 planning on Henderson Bridge will begin in 2021. And that's really the opportunity for the stakeholder groups, our individual stakeholders, to contact RIDOT through the public meetings we will be having and your municipal planning departments with ideas that you have about what can be incorporated into Phase 2. Okay, Kathleen, we'd like to move to the next slide. Get into the questions and answers. And at this time, Anthony, Jamie, and I are going to join you as we start to go through the questions together. Can you hear Jamie and Anthony? We all have our mics on?
Yes, sir.
I think so.
Okay. We have had a team reviewing the questions that have been coming in. And we want to start off with a question. What traffic calming measures will be installed on the Providence side of the Henderson Bridge? And so we're going to focus that question on Phase 1, because on Phase 2, which is not designed yet, we are looking at a roundabout as a major potential traffic calming. But Jamie or Anthony, would you review again the traffic calming measures to be installed on the Providence side of the Henderson Bridge during Phase 1?
Yeah, Dave, I can take that question. So the first traffic calming element coming from Waterman Street is we will be creating more of a left turn lane from Waterman Street onto the approach to the Henderson Bridge. That 90-degree turn will require slower vehicles making that approach. We will also reduce that 2-lane approach today to 1 lane. On the approach from the Henderson Bridge towards South Angel Street, we do maintain the 2 travel lanes that are there today. However, we've reduced the travel lanes from 12 feet wide each to 11 feet, again, reducing the roadway width and encouraging slower speeds. We will also incorporate that speed feedback sign that I had mentioned that would be just off the bridge and would direct vehicles to the speed that they're at, and also have a sign that says the posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour.
Okay. Next question, and we're going to sort of cover this in a blanket question here because we're getting quite a few of them. The first part has not been asked before. We have Councilwoman Helen Anthony has asked, has the Henderson project gone out to bid, and if so, can the plans be changed based upon the feedback you received at tonight's meeting? That answer is really no. The meetings we had all through 2019 gathered a lot of the information from stakeholders and from the municipalities that were put into the design that's going out. Actually, the bid will probably be open end of May or early June. But what is important is everything we did in 2019 to get us to where we are today is going to be replicated in 2020 and in 2021 to gather that same feedback towards phase 2. And that will be important to attend the public meetings we have, whether they're virtual or live, in your community, neighborhood associations, business associations, so we can gather all of your input for phase 2 and make sure that as much of it as possible gets in there. Again, on phase 2, there are many questions on phase 2. We will be having, again, our schedule is going to be the Washington Bridge virtual meeting this summer. 2021, we will start having a lot more input regarding phase 2, and then we'll get back to people with more meetings on phase 2 to get that information. We've got a question here from Chris. What year was the existing bridge built? Anthony,
You know that? Yeah, the existing bridge was built in 1969.
Okay, I know Director Alviti and Senator Reed mentioned 1967 quite a bit. Have a shared anniversary that year from school days, and they do talk about that the bridge was either open or near open in 67.
Yeah, it must have been under construction.
Yeah, actually, Dave, there was multiple construction contracts the way that the bridge was built. So it was multiple phases through the 60s.
Okay. We have a question from Alice, that her home on Patterson shakes with trucks on the current bridge. Will this be addressed or stopped with the new design?
I apologize, I can't get into the specifics in terms of impacts to her home. The proposed roadway improvements and the traffic calming measures that we've incorporated will hopefully slow the trucks down and reduce potential impacts to our home.
Okay. David Parr asked a very interesting question, and this may be mainly budgetary, but what about switching the direction of the center lane to correspond with rush hour flow in and out of Providence? The San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge uses this technique very successfully, as I know they use around the Boston area.
I would address it in a couple of ways, Dave. First, you know, it's complicated to incorporate a reversible lane on a project such as this. Again, depending on how things play out on either side of the bridge, but the overall intent of the project was to create more of a local roadway network, slowing people down and using it more like a local road, and we don't do that with a reversible lane.
Okay. All right, we've got Amy. They installed barriers in the middle of the Pell Bridge for safety. Why no barriers in the center of the undivided Henderson Bridge? And she's concerned about the speed limit and causing head-on crashes.
Yeah, so Dave, I sort of addressed that with the last comment answer that I had, but I mean, the bridge is set up in a way such that it's going to be more of a local road and slower speeds, and a center barrier is not expected to be needed on the Pell Bridge.
Okay. Again, we're getting a number of questions about the budget for phase 2. And as Anthony mentioned, we're waiting to get that from our TIP program for roadworks to find out what the actual limits in budget are. And again, we hope to have that this summer. A question about Waterman Street in Providence. Is the crosswalk on Waterman Street approaching the bridge going to be a crosswalk? Will it have a signal with walk, don't walk signs? How might that impede traffic flow?
It's not going to be signalized for the crossing. It's just a crosswalk, and people will make the movement as appropriate.
I was looking for a longer answer there at that time, Jamie, because I'm going through the questions, but that's okay.
I'll add that whole intersection through there is likely going to be addressed under the phase 2 scope as well. I know I'm talking with some of our coordination with Providence. They were looking some improvements right through that area, connecting down towards Pittman or Butler and kind of connecting that whole neighborhood. So that's any of those connections are certainly up for discussion as part of phase 2.
Okay. Jonathan is asking, did the design team consider approaching the bridge from River Drive on the east side of Providence? This would greatly shorten the approach and help to slow traffic.
Actually, we did not consider that. We addressed it in terms of the connections into Providence. Traffic coming off the bridge on River Street or East River Street would then follow a different path into East Providence. So again, basically beyond the scope of the work.
Okay. Chris is asking, on the eastbound ramp leaving Providence, what traffic calming is present to ensure a safe pedestrian bicycle crossing? Will there be speed bumps, lights, lane narrowing, yield signs, etc.? Who will have the right of way?
Sorry, Dave, could you start that question off again?
Sure. On the eastbound ramp leaving Providence, what traffic calming is present to ensure a safe pedestrian bicycle crossing? Will there be speed bumps, lights, lane narrowing, yield signs, etc.? Who will have the right of way? I guess this is on Waterman as you head up to the bridge.
Yeah. So again, we've reduced the down from 2 lanes to 1 lane. The crossing would be 19 feet wide. Basically 1 lane of roadway. There are no signals, lights, speed bumps, or anything incorporated on that approach.
Okay. Rick is asking, why isn't the area where the dog park is currently located identified for potential development?
Actually, as we coordinated with the municipalities, Providence had indicated potential options such as the roundabout that was shown in the phase 2. There were other groups that had proposed other elements such as roadways through the dog park. So those are elements that can be discussed as a part of phase 2 and advanced accordingly.
Okay. Karen asked a good question. She said she missed it when the detail showing the one-way lane on the new bridge was shown. Is there any room for breakdown for vehicles traveling in that direction?
There are shoulders on the bridge and the roadways. Typically off the bridge, they're 4 feet, and on the bridge, it's 3.5 feet. So again, a car would pull over and other vehicles would be able to move around those disabled vehicles.
Okay. Sherry Nelson asked, will there be any impact to boat traffic, either during the project or after its completion? I'm sure the Coast Guard was interested in that also.
Yeah, our coordination with the Coast Guard, in the after piece, there will be no issues or impacts to boating traffic. During construction, there will be potentially barges or elements of construction, but the channel will always remain open such that boat access will be maintained.
Okay, it'd be interesting to see if we get an increase in boat traffic on the Seekonk River over the next few years. Okay, scanning through. Again, there were a number of questions about budget and planning of phase 2, and that we'll know more about that this summer, and we'll be doing outreach and working with stakeholders in 2021. We have another question about a breakdown. They want to know if there is a breakdown heading eastbound, will they be able to use one of the westbound lanes? And Elizabeth Walsh is asking that. I will say, I'll answer that one. When we have 2 lanes going into westbound into Providence and one into Providence, those 3 lanes do give us the opportunity, if there was a major accident or if there's future repairs that have to be done, we can always use close one lane to take care of a major accident or to work on repairs, and still have the other 2 lanes that we could use for traffic, both eastbound and westbound. That was part of the design of the going to 3 lanes, plus with the shoulders that are there. Okay, we'll get 1 or 2 more here. Once again, every question and comment that's here, if it's not read live tonight, they will all be answered in writing and posted on the Henderson Bridge project page within the next days. Okay, we've got a question. Thank you for your responsiveness to East Providence Municipal and Waterfront Commission concerns. Did I understand the waterfront drive will be closed between Waterman Ave and Dexter Road from spring 2021 to December 21? Will the closure extend south to Warren Avenue? If so, during what period?
Her understanding is correct. We anticipated it closed from Waterman Ave to Dexter from the spring of 2021 to December of 2021. South of Waterman Ave would not be closed, but there would be detours such that it captures traffic and reroutes them throughout East Providence and into our project area.
I would also add, obviously, the time frame given was based on our analysis and time determination that we've done based on our plans. Once we have a contractor on board, they're responsible for creating their own project schedule. So the actual duration is likely to remain the same, but the time frame when that duration happens could likely shift, anywhere several months is likely.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Anthony, for that clarification, because again, the time frame that we presented was just an anticipated construction timeline.
Okay, and Mary Ann Lynch is asking, are you still going to have the on-ramp to the bridge from Providence's Waterman Grill area? I know that our friends at Waterman Grill and Newport Harbor Corporate were also interested in that.
Sorry, Dave.
So the ramp is staying. It will be teed up as an intersection, but the ramp will be staying.
Correct.
And we're going to take one more question because we're having a little freezing here of the system. What will be the height of the new bridge compared to the current height?
So over the channel span, basically the center of the bridge, it will be exactly the same. The approach to Providence is roughly the same as it is today. And on the East Providence side, the bridge will be lowered such that we touch down where the former railroad track area is along the Seekonk River. On the graphic that's shown in front of you, it's the light sort of silver area right in the middle above the word Henderson Bridge. That's the length of the bridge. So the height comes down.
I want to say it was on the order of about 10 to 12 feet.
Correct.
Okay, and then since this is fixing a structurally deficient bridge, we are going to have the final question by Dr. Alan Biello. Is any of the existing Henderson Bridge being reused, the piers or footings, or is everything going to be new?
Anthony, you want to jump on that one?
Sure. Yeah, no, great question. We are reusing what we can. Essentially, it is the pier foundations. So most of them are located right at the mud line in the river for those piers. So there's a large concrete foundation that the pier columns sit on top of, and then there's steel piles that extend down well below the seabed. We've done analysis on that, a lot of engineering analysis, and provided that they're all in good enough shape. We're able to reuse them, supplement them with some additional piles in certain locations where needed. But we were able to reuse everything in the river, which greatly reduces the impact to the environment in the river and how much work we're going to be doing in the water itself.
Okay. All right. We would like to thank you all for attending tonight. We had over 450 people sign up for this virtual town hall. So we really appreciate your passion, your interest. Again, we took a lot of what you said to us in 2019, and we hope that you enjoyed the results of the upcoming project. And we look forward to starting over again with you in 2021 as we look at phase 2. And I know many of you will probably join us for the next virtual town hall, which will be the Washington Bridge project coming up in June. Again, we will email you the link to the project page. You will have access to that, the animation, and updates on the project as we move along. So for everyone at RIDOT and our VHB partners and the municipalities, I want to thank everyone again for attending, joining us tonight, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Nice job, guys. Hey, Joe.